everybody. Tom here with Hidden Beats, and today we are talking with Mr. Drew Arnott of Strange Advance. How are you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good, thanks, Tom.
It's not every day you get to talk to somebody celebrating, 40 years of music. How does that feel to say?
Well, it's a first for me too. Uh, and like anything else, as you get older, it's like, holy crap, how did this happen? How
Yeah.
did I get here? But anyway, here I am. So,
Mm. Well, we're here today to talk about you, about your music and what you bring to the world. But for those who are new, what would you say would be your elevator pitch to describe yourself?
oh well, if you're fond of arranged, orchestrated music with a slight pop prog kind of bent, then Strange Advance is your jam.
Okay. So, I mean, if we go back to the start, Strange Advance comes out in 1980s and we're still here today. So, what do you think has kept your music kind of relevant in with your fandom?
Well, and the bottom line is this: if you have a record company and they're pushing you, and back in the 80s, we had a major label that that had a certain amount of influence to get songs on the radio
Hmm.
because that was key. Back then, if you weren't on the radio, no one's going to hear you, no one's going to know about you. So so that was a key thing. Now, of course, you've got to fend for yourself. You've got to be on TikTok, you've got to be on Instagram, you've got to be everywhere, and you've got to be building up your own uh, collection of fans or whatever in
Hmm.
order to prove yourself worthy to the record company. And so that's just totally changed over the years. And I would say that because we got into the ears and the hearts and the minds of 15 to 25 year olds back in the 80s, we still got them.
Hmm.
They still love all the music that they loved back then, and we're it's fortunate to be one of those acts that they have fond memories of.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if you look back, who would you say were some early influences for you and how you pursued music?
Well, starting from the beginning, it was the Beatles for me, the Beatles all the way. And then I got it. I love pop music. I mean, just really light, frothy pop music. So I loved all the like T-Rex and Mott the Hoople and Slade and all those kind of acts. And but I also got into prog rock. Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, Gentle Giant, Straubs, all those bands. They were hugely influential. As a matter of fact, when I graduated high school, because Yes and Genesis used an instrument called a mellotron,
Mm.
and I fell in love with the sound of it. I borrowed a couple $1,000 from my dad, and I went off to London, England, and bought myself a mellotron, and and then came back with it. Of course, I'm a drummer, so what do I know about playing keyboards? Nothing. But that was sort of my way into the whole songwriting world, having this mellotron, and also it got me into the studio world because I would rent it out. The very, very first gig I did with the Mellotron, I rented it to Heart, who used it on their first album, Dreamboat Danny.
Okay.
So, so yeah, I would get calls from studios, and of course back then the Musicians Union was stronger, and they had a thing against the Mellotron, which was basically analog tapes having different sounds recorded on them. So, it would be common to have flute, violins, and cello. That was like their standard tape bank. And and the musicians union took great exception to this because they're like, you're going to be putting musicians out of work. It's like, oh God, buddy, wait till you see sampling and stuff to come.
Yeah.
It's going to be a whole new world. I mean, forget robbing musicians of work. I mean, I can load up an AI program and spit out a song in 30 seconds.
Oh,
It's
very
like
much so. Yeah.
it's insane, and not necessarily the best songs in the world, but boy, speedy. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's there's been a lot of changes in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you listen to something like Worlds Away, what stands out to you the most now in the new world, basically?
Well, you know something, when we play Worlds Away is a song that that affected a lot of people. And of course, it comes from sort of a sci-fi background, and pretty relevant these days. It's like we're destroying the planet. Our only chance of survival is leaving, and like how far away are we from that?
Hmm.
So, but it's a magical song to perform. It's a pretty powerful sounding song, and I just get chills whenever we play it. You know, because I see the audience and they're really, having a great time, hearing it again. And that's the other thing about Strange Advance. Back in the 80s, we didn't tour very much. We weren't into touring.
Hmm.
We were studio cats. We just wanted to write songs and record and stuff. But so we didn't play that many dates in the 80s, and as a result, we've got all these people lined up that we're on their bucket list. It's like finally I have the opportunity to see this band that I used to love. It's like so that's pretty crazy too.
Hmm. That's a unique feeling, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, especially after all this time. Just showing up out of nowhere. It's like you're kidding, you're back. And yeah, so it's been a great experience. Just fantastic, especially meeting the fans and getting to hear all the stories. And I had a girl show up at a gig, and she was like very proud to show me her Worlds Away tattoo on
Okay.
her leg. And why? Because it was her grandmother's favorite song
Mm.
of all things. So yeah, in honor of her grandmother, she had Worlds Away tattooed on her leg. So it's just awesome hearing all the different stories and actually getting to meet fans. Because back in the 80s, you didn't get to actually meet the fans.
Yeah.
There was no social media. You couldn't just sign on to something and make a comment, and it just wasn't possible back then. But now, I've got lots of fans that have turned out to be friends.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
Hmm. Now, do you remember the moment when you thought like, wow, we're really doing something different and fun here?
Well, I always thought we were doing something fun and different, but actually, when we were in the studio with this powerhouse crew that we had behind us, we had Bruce Fairburn producing, Bob Rock engineering, Mike Fraser assistant engineering, and they've all gone on to well, where Bruce has passed away, but Bob and Mike have gone on to become huge famous producers, engineers, and stuff. And we were recording Worlds Away, and we were taking a break for Christmas, and and I'd written the song, but I hadn't finished the lyrics. So Bob's like, okay, I can't wait to hear how this song ends up. It's like I love the track, I love the vibe of it all, and now I want to hear the melody, I want to hear the lyrics and stuff. So when I came back after Christmas, I'd written a set of lyrics and finalized the melody, and just to see those guys who were so talented get so excited about it, it was like, yeah, I think we've got something. You
Hmm.
know, it's working. So I think that was probably the first moment.
Yeah. Now, do you think it was a blessing or a challenge back then when you were considered ahead of your time and doing something different like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, because you really want to be of the time. If you're too far ahead of it, it's like, okay, well, in 5 years we'll catch up, but you'll be gone. You'll be somewhere else by that stage. So yeah, it's a very good question. Um, I guess in actual fact, what we were doing was just a reflection of what was going on in Britain at the time. And Britain was a little further musically advanced than North America.
Hmm.
And North America is further advanced than the rest of Europe. It's a very strange thing. There are places in Europe where you could still be a disco star. There's
Yeah.
places that are just like, oh, we love this shit. And yeah, so I'm sorry, I've forgotten the original question. What's the question?
the blessing or a curse if
Oh,
games
a blessing
in the
and a
head with
curse.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I'm going to say it was a blessing. I would say more positive, more good came out of it than bad. Um, we were definitely on the cutting edge. It just meant that we were more suitable for big cities.
Hmm.
They tended to have people that supported slightly edgier music and stuff, and it meant that it's hard for us to show up in you know in the middle of the country in little towns that are like, no, you don't understand. The 80s just passed us by.
Yeah.
We just stuck with our rock and roll and our blues roots and stuff, and so when we show up, it's like, well, first of all, we only show up when people want us to be there,
Hmm.
and then you get to these places like, oh, so in fact, there's only the seven of you that actually really wanted us to be there, and everybody else stayed home to watch the game. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's life, but so as I say, we do better in the major centers.
Yeah, it makes sense for sure. It's some, back then it was probably a acquired taste more so and more
Yeah,
option stuff. So
yeah. I mean, and you had to have like enough radio stations that, okay, well, we're the classic rock guys, and well, we're the country guys, and okay, well, we're the new kids on the block, not the band, the music, and so we'll play new wave kind of stuff or whatever, and it's like, and we'll sort of make our dent there, but that can only happen in cities that have multiple radio stations.
yeah.
So and that's the problem. If people aren't hearing the music, then how do they know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I want to look a bit at music now versus then, and I'm curious what your relationship is with production and synthesizers, all that stuff now compared to the 80s.
Well, when I started, it was all hardware synths,
Hmm.
and I had the best. I was just like, you know, I had the nicest gear. It was awesome, and it was very inspiring, and it led to a lot of the songs that I wrote were based on sounds and things that I would find in these synthesizers and stuff. And I would insist I would never use a preset.
Okay.
It's like you buy a synth in the store. It's like, oh, it comes with 2,000 of the most glorious sounds. It's like, well, I just consider that cheating.
Hmm.
But now I've become a cheater. Now I'm a cheater because like I work in a program called Logic,
Yeah.
and we use MainStage, which is related to Logic for live performances and stuff. And so it's just too simple. It's just too simple to dial up sounds that okay, I have an idea of the sound I'm looking for, and and I start hunting, and 5 minutes later, it's like, okay, I've got it, as opposed to an hour and a half programming it.
Hmm.
Um, and so I do find myself, because there are a lot of great programmers out there coming up with great sounds and stuff. The problem is a lot of them, the sound is like so large and encompassing, it sort of takes over the track. Whereas back in the day, it's like you would just use little sounds. You just wanted to accent a little part. You
Hmm.
didn't need like the voice of God that happens now when you turn on some of these amazing synths. So yeah, yeah, I would say that's one big difference. Production today, production wise, you can do amazing things in your bedroom.
Oh yeah.
It's just phenomenal. And by the way, lots of people did, great music back then at home as well. But it's expanded so much, and so much good gear is now available. Back in the day, it's like, if you weren't spending $1,000 on a microphone, you were considered an amateur. And now you can get anything you want, and anybody can create the most amazing works, and it's created the Spotify universe.
Yeah.
And the only problem with the universe is too damn big. You can't get to the far end of it, so you're never going to hear everything that's on Spotify. And all these people, getting back to like my talk of the major labels, that's where they came in handy.
Hmm.
because they could, they were, first of all, they weren't signing 1,000 bands. They were only going to sign a dozen bands or at any one time. And if you were one of them, you were getting their attention.
Yeah.
Now, for sure, you can break out of TikTok. A song can go viral, and good for you. Um, but usually that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
It's not going to go any further. Whereas back in the day, at least, a record company would stay with you. They would support you while you're learning your craft, while you're building an audience. They would hang in there, and you could get two or three albums before they would say, "It's not working. Sorry, we're going to have to drop you."
Hmm.
Now, if your first single doesn't click in the first week or something, you're gone.
Yeah. You
You
stuck
know,
with that one single deal and that's it. And
Yeah, which is pathetic.
mhm.
How are people supposed to develop? That's the way it happened back in the day. It took a while to build an act and stuff. So, and now, record labels, of course, had it so good for so long, especially when they brought out CDs
Mm.
and all of a sudden could resell their entire catalog, all over again, and billions of dollars were being made, and that was great. And then I guess it went to streaming services and stuff, and now anything's available, and record companies are hurting,
Hmm.
and so now they're it's like, no, we don't want to take a chance on you. You go out there and build an audience. When you've got 1 million followers, call us, and we'll consider signing you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a totally different world, and I'm very happy to be part of the old world because we could still go out and play. We could still actually sell CDs. I
Hmm.
still, we put out a CD of 2 or 3 years ago. I still get orders from Japan, Germany, Portugal, you name it, and and that's a testament to the fact that we had that support back in the '80s. The word got out there all around the world, and people still dig the music, and they still want to hear it. So I'm one of the lucky ones. But to be a young uh, singer songwriter guy these days, wow, tough, 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 tough world out there now.
For sure. Now, for you, you've been around for a bit doing this. How do you balance staying true to your core sound with all the new production, new everything that's out there?
Well, I mean, I try to make good use of it all. Um, it's not too different than what we were doing back then, because we were a little bit more musically sophisticated. You
Hmm.
know, there was a lot going on musically, and although, as I say, I would give my left arm to write, "Get It On" by T Rex or something, because to me that's like the perfect pop song, and I haven't written a song that I consider the perfect pop song yet. So there's still challenges there ahead for me.
Yeah, for sure. And recently, you guys had the performance at the Phoenix Concert Theater. How was that for you getting back on the stage in that venue?
Well, that was awesome. We didn't play we've never played the Phoenix or the Diamond Club or whatever it was called before. We had a weird situation. We were going to tour after our first album,
Okay.
and but we had to cancel those plans because literally days before we were due to take off, Daryl's dad passed away,
Oh,
and he was an only child. He said, I can't leave my mom
yeah.
like right now. So all right, well, we pulled the plug on the tour and started working, on new songs for the next album. But as a result, we didn't open for anybody. We didn't do the normal routine where you sign on to a tour,
Hmm.
and we're going to go across the country with so and so or whatever. We didn't get to do that. So by the time our second album came out, now we were too big to open for people. So we were headlining shows, and as a result, like, we missed out on all the interesting experiences you have when you're touring as an opening act.
Hmm.
Getting shafted by the main actor, that used to happen. I don't think it happens anymore.
It still
And
does, yeah.
It still does, eh? So yeah, and getting to meet other bands that are on their way up and stuff, and it would have been a lot of fun getting a chance to do that, but we didn't really do it. So yeah, and again, it reflects in our audience now because there are so many people that never had the chance to see us back then, so they're coming out in droves now. And the Phoenix, so we didn't play the Phoenix because that was like a smaller venue,
Hmm.
at the time. And so we bypassed all that. We missed out on all that, and I feel bad about that. I think we would have learned a lot and gained some useful experience if we had a chance to do that. But
Hmm.
yeah. So anyway, the Phoenix was great. It was a great show. It was us, uh, Images, the box, and yeah, a great package, a great night of '80s music, and the crowd were very, very happy.
Hmm. I think I actually had some of my colleagues out. They just wanted to go enjoy the show, so that they were there for it.
Oh, nice, nice.
Was it what you expected with the crowd, or did it like surprise you how the energy and stuff that came out of it?
Well, not really, because we played a number of shows like that, and so you kind of just come to expect that kind of reaction. But it's always so pleasing. I remember, not that night. There was another night not long ago where we were doing We Run, and I thought, I've got to close my eyes. I can't look at these people
Mm,
because it's so emotional because they're so emotional about it, and there are people with tears in their eyes and stuff. It's like, oh, I can't. I got to focus on the song. I'm gonna
yeah,
lose it here. So yeah, it's been great playing for people after all this time.
nice. So on the back half of my interviews, I like to ask, some more thought provoking questions, maybe some out of the box. I think you'll have an interesting insight on this one because you've been in the industry as long as you have. What's one question you think should be asked more in an interview that's not asked enough?
Oh, you are making me think. You are making me think. Oh, if I was an interviewer, what question would I want to ask people that, something I've kind of got a problem. Like, for instance, I had the chance to meet David Bowie.
Okay.
We were playing in a club in Vancouver, and he was in town, and he came to the club, and I thought, oh, do I want to go up to David Bowie and what am I going to talk to him about? Hi, David. Really enjoy your music. Oh, thank you very much. It's like, okay, see ya. It's like, what am I supposed to say?
Hmm.
And I thought, well, that's not how I want to meet David Bowie. I want to be in the studio and he's working next door and we bump into each other in the kitchen. We have a spark up a little conversation or something.
Yeah.
So and again, I was a huge fan of the Beatles, and Paul McCartney as a songwriter just unsurpassed.
Mhm.
It's just crazy the amount of awesome songs he's written. And again, because I'm a songwriter, I guess I would have to ask questions about the songs, about where did this idea come from? Did something inspire you to do this, or were you listening to a little Bach or something, and you borrowed a little idea, or what's the story? It would have to be questions like that, which makes me not a good interviewer. I would just be like, satisfying my own curiosity about musically what I related to. So I'm going to leave the interviewing to you.
Well, I quite honestly in the same boat sometimes. There's people you talk to and it's like, what am I going to say to you? I don't. And
Yeah.
I started interviewing during COVID. I'm a live concert photographer, so I'm usually out taking pictures, reviewing the show and things like that. COVID hits,
Right.
can't do that, so I got asked to do an interview, and I wasn't someone who was ever in front of the camera, so this is
Yeah.
kind of different for me at the start too.
Well, speaking of something different, um, like it's bizarre for me to like I started off as the drummer,
Hmm.
and pretty good drummer, and quite happy to be sitting back there watching the show, playing along, doing whatever. And then with Strange Advance, it's like, no, no, now you got to be a keyboard player. That's like, okay, well, I'm a pretty hack keyboard player, but sure, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And so, and sing an occasional song. And now I go out front and I sing like, maybe 4 or 5 songs during the night.
Hmm.
And it is bizarre for a drummer to suddenly be on the front of the stage talking to the audience, going, yeah, I guess I'm going to be like the lead singer for the next couple of songs here. And I'm a very fearful person. So the first time I did it, I was just like, I'm just hanging on to that mic stand for dear, just like save me, help, don't. I was just going to fall to the floor. I'm just shaking. It's like just crazy. So it's been a sort of a different perspective on music and stuff for me. So
Hmm.
that now I go out there, it's like, oh, okay, I'm a semi frontman for a few songs here, and so that's been interesting. That's kept me on my toes, let's say,
For sure.
because all of a sudden now it's like, oh, yeah, I might have written the songs, but now I got to remember all the lyrics. Oh, damn,
Yeah. You have to
So
work for it.
anyway, sorry.
I said you actually have to work and remember that now. And
Oh, it's a pain in the ass, I got to tell you.
mhm.
But anyway, it's all good.
So if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, knowing all that you know, what would it be?
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. It's all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, just I would just tell myself, relax, enjoy. It's going to be a great experience. And again, that's something that it wasn't a great experience for me in the 80s
Mhm.
because I was sort of in charge of things and running around like a crazy person, and I didn't have the time to relax and enjoy the whole thing.
Yeah.
And now it's like, as I say, now I actually get to be at the front of the stage. I get to have a good look at the audience and have a chat and stuff, and then yeah, it's a totally different thing for me now. I At the end of every show, we go out into the lobby, we meet the fans. We never did anything like that.
Hmm.
We would scurry off the stage and back to the safety of our dressing room and discuss all the all the mistakes we made. But now it's much more enjoyable. I really get a kick out of the whole thing,
Hmm.
especially meeting the people. And so yeah, I would just say to myself, relax, enjoy, and you're gonna have fun.
Awesome. Now, fun one for you. Looking back at your career, who plays you in the movie of your life?
Oh, good question. Good question. Well, I'm sorry, he's aged out now. Can't use him. Yeah, it's a good question. Well, let's just say, well, he already took Bob Dylan. Let's give it to Timothy Chalamet, and
Oh,
he can be my avatar.
I mean, hey, that works. And it's your movie. You get to cast whoever you want.
Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. Yeah, might as well get Spielberg to direct while we're at it.
There you go.
So yeah, we're building something good here.
Nice. Now, if you had to introduce your music to a new fan for the very first time, looking back at your catalog, what's the first song they need to listen to that hooks them?
Oh man. Well, again, you're sort of talking adjacent to what's your favorite song or whatever, except it's like what would hook them. Well, I would like to think that We Run is the closest we ever came to that perfect pop song, and it was we got a lot of help. There's a guy named Scott Litt who who mixed the song, and his next project was REM, and he's sort of credited with being the person that convinced Michael Stipe to turn up his vocals because Michael Stipe didn't like to hear himself. And but anyway, Scott Litt did a fantastic job on the mix. There are so many people that contributed. and it ended up being something that still sounds great on the radio today. And yeah, it stood the test of time. So I would say We Run.
No, I like that one. I think that is a pretty good doorway. Now, if you well, what do you want fans to take away from your music?
I the same thing that I want, and whenever I listen to music, I just want to feel something.
Mhm.
I just want it to touch me somehow. Whatever that might be. I can remember seeing when I was in high school, Led Zeppelin came to town, and this was the second time they'd been to Vancouver, and they just came a few months later. They came, they opened up for Vanilla Fudge,
Okay.
and then they came back a few months later, and Vanilla Fudge opened for them.
Mhm.
And what a show! I mean, can you imagine? The Zeppelin for the first time. You don't know what they look like. I had their first album, of course, but so anyway, I'm just saying I felt a lot from
Mhm.
that show. It was awesome. And it's the same with like I get lost out of Gary Newman. I enjoy Coldplay because they're Chris Martin's a great songwriter. Um, so yeah, it's like I just want them to feel something. Bottom line.
I like that. That's a good one. Now, what are some of your future milestones? I mean, we're coming to the end of the interview here. I'm sure you have some new things you might want to pitch or places your directions you're going.
Well, here's an interesting one. Um, just for for shits and giggles, I guess I started to write a screenplay.
Okay.
I've always had ideas for movies, and apparently everybody on the planet has ideas for movies. But anyway, I had an idea, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna learn how to write a screenplay, and it turned out that I actually I bought a book on writing screenplays, and I wrote my screenplay, and then I read the book,
Okay.
and and I'm going, oh, I was just naturally hitting all the major points this guy's saying you've got to hit.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, that's cool. And so anyway, I sent it off to the only guy I know that's still in the film business, Vance DeGeneres, Ellen's brother that I met when we were shooting our first videos in New Orleans. And he was the production manager, not the production manager. He managed the production company for Steve Carell. So
Okay.
I thought, well, this is a good guy. And so anyway, I hear from him, and he says, okay, two things. One, you're a very good writer. Two, never do that again. Never send an unsolicited script. It's just not done. And he says, well, let me tell you a story. And he tells me the story of a friend of his who moved from New Orleans to L.A. to have a career as a screenwriter.
Mhm.
And he says he's written some fantastic screenplays, and he cannot get one read, never mind, produced or anything. And basically, he's just saying, hey, it is tough.
Yeah.
It is tough out there. So anyway, I'm being interviewed. This is a few months ago. I'm being interviewed for a documentary on the Canadian music scene. And the guy that's directing the documentary, a pal of his, is there, who's a movie producer, and he's talking about scripts. I say, oh, I've got a script story. So I tell him my story, and how, oh, well, I guess that's not going to happen. He said, well, I'll read your script. I'd be happy to read your script.
Mm.
So he reads it, gives me a call a couple of days later and says, yeah, I liked it. And I said, but like, no, no buts. I like that. I think we should raise some money and make this movie.
Oh wow.
And it's like, what? What? So anyway, now I've got to do a rewrite. That's the next thing on my list. And what can I say? It's like whether this happens or not, I have no idea.
Hmm.
But at this late stage of the game, to suddenly, oh, you're kidding! I might actually get a, a story told in film. This is amazing. So that's my next goal. Get a film made.
That's a pretty good goal. I like that one.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Hmm. All right, my last question for you. If you're looking back at your career and having to think over everything, are you happy?
Well, you mean happy with my career?
Just happy in general, happy
Oh,
with everything.
well, I'm generally a pretty optimistic person, and I always anticipate good things happening,
Hmm.
and that keeps me in a pretty good frame of mind. So I would say that I've got a good life. I'm surrounded by people that love me. I'm able to be creative and still, somewhat relevant. And so the answer I would have to say is yes, an unqualified yes. I am happy.
I mean, that's a pretty good way to end off, I think, too.
Absolutely.
It was great to get to learn more about you, your career. I mean, the stories are that's the favorite thing for me is hearing stories that, you
Yeah.
get open for people or not open for people, all these things. Like I love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me
Mhm.
too.
Well, where can people find you on social media?
Well, we've got a couple of pages on Facebook.
Okay.
There's an Instagram account. Um, I think that's probably the best. Of course, if you want to actually communicate with us or sign up on to the mailing list on the website, strangeadvance.com. And yeah, and people can reach out to us if they have any questions or whatever. And since you're in Ottawa, let me say in October, I think October 10th, we're back at the Bronson
Oh,
in
okay.
Ottawa.
That's
Yeah,
actually one of my favorite venues to go shoot at. So I can see if I can get out there for that one.
yeah, absolutely. Make sure you do.
Awesome. Well, it was like I said, it was nice, and we'll sign off, and hopefully we get to do this again. I'd love to pick your brain about more things.
Sure, sounds good. Thanks, Tom.
Awesome. Have a good one.